Uh, so in your history of hyenas, that unfortunately has come to an end.
Yeah.
We're talking about empires coming to an end. All empires fall.
Yeah.
That one, well, it may rise again. Empires might rise. Who knows? Who knows? I'm obviously a fan, so I hope it does rise again. But you've seemed to develop your own language. Can you, it's what it is. What is that? What the hell? Is this some kind of medical condition, or can you explain like the linguistic essentials that catch us up to the linguistic essentials that people need to know to understand the way you speak?
You know Leopold and Loeb? You know the story of those two? They murdered that kid, and they had this weird relationship. Anyway, it's an interesting thing to Google. Leopold and Loeb, these two guys who ended up murdering a kid because they developed their own language with each other and this own reality and this weird thing, and they wanted to know what it's like to murder a kid, and they murder a kid. It's a famous story in American lore and history or whatever. Famous case. But this phenomenon, me and Chris got together. It wasn't as dark as Leopold and Loeb. We didn't murder a kid, but we murdered a podcast.
Or at least stabbed it a few times.
Yeah, it was something in the organic chemistry of me and Chris that I think we'll both end up appreciating even probably more than we do now. That it's mysterious. I got to be honest with you. It was a thing that it wasn't conscious, wasn't intentional. It was something that happened in the music of our energies.
Yeah,
that just went.
Fascinating.
Like when you hear someone sing, or when a jazz band hits a rhythm, or even when I'm on stage and I just catch a rhythm, it's like, dude, I didn't make a choice there. I don't know what that is. I don't know how to explain it, but it comes from somewhere else. And I don't know what it is. It's beyond my comprehension, but with Chris, there was this magical chemistry that, I have chemistry with a lot of people, and it can be funny, and I
feel zero chemistry here.
This is great. This is great. Yeah, it's a little bit more intelligent than what me and Chris did. But me and Chris, I think we connected on the funny bone. Like I found him so funny, and we found the same things funny. And from that, these organic expressions came from some part of our brains that was created from this chemistry. And we just developed this language and this cult following, and people were really upset when we ended, but it was the right thing to end because, like all things that end, it was kind of done a few episodes even before we finished. And I think we pulled the plug before it started rolling downhill. Like all great flings. There's your long marriages are boring and comfortable. The one you really like fucking always ends abruptly and sadly, and but you always look back and you jerk off to it. And but
so you guys made love.
We made So it's like it was like a hot fling with me and him, and it was intense, and we burned the candle at both ends. And it was I think that podcast was meant to be 3 years, and maybe people will go back and appreciate it and listen to it over and over again. And I think the new things we do, people will love. I'm doing Long Days now, that podcast, and people seem to enjoy it.
I've been really enjoying the Long Days,
you.
on YouTube. I just found myself just like staring at you ranting for it. Same with Tim Dillon. I really enjoyed whatever those rants are, the genius of just like one thing after the other. But definitely the chemistry, almost as a study. I remember the reason I first started listening to it, I was trying to get a perspective on certain historical moments. Like it was interesting. I tuned in to learn history. I came for the history and like stayed for the chaos and
the crack open and clean out.
And it was almost. I listen to Rogan like this sometimes. I'll re-listen to an episode to try to understand why was this so fun to listen to. It's almost like trying to analyze humor or something like that, but it's nice from a conversational perspective. Like, why was this so easy to listen to? And then with History of Hyenas, like, why is the chemistry so good? It's weird. It's weird because there's not many podcasts like that. I don't know any with the chemistry like that.
Yeah,
and it's interesting, and it's kind of sad that the fling with a prostitute in Vegas has to end. you know, like that. But that's what makes it special. It's the Bukowski thing with the fog. The British Office, one of my favorite shows, was that it ended very quick. You know, it's only a couple of seasons or something like that, and that was tragic. But that took guts to just end it. Given all the money you could have made, you just end it, and that's what makes it like truly special.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, man, I'll just emphasize it because I marvel at it too. Because as a guy who tries to always figure out what the causes of things, I got to be honest, man. Looking back on that, even with retrospective wisdom, you know, that 2020 hindsight, we've been done a couple months now. It's something that I can't explain.
Yeah,
it's something that I don't know how you quantify it. I don't know how you describe it. It's musical. It's really kind of rhythmic. So
maybe like a Netflix show about history. That's in the future. That
maybe,
with the two of you.
Yeah, who knows?
You guys will meet like with that the way you meet with a fling like a decade from now at a diner, and you're both way fatter and uglier, and then you just reminisce over some cigarettes and coffee.
That could be. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a classic podcast that people can go back and appreciate. It's fast paced and it was unique.
What was it like to research for? I mean, it was really scholarly. The depth of research that you performed. It sometimes felt like you almost read an entire Wikipedia article beforehand.
Or like exactly true. We were one fan. We attracted such funny people to that podcast, and the fans were so funny. And one fan nicknamed us Wikipedia sluts, and so it just stuck. Yeah, we just would read Wikipedia. I would do a lot more research than Chris.
Yeah,
and so I would actually, once in a while he'd get into it too, but. For very interesting episodes, I got some subject matter would just pull me in, like Bernie Madoff, just to think of one that was recent. It was one of our last ones. And I think one of our better episodes. And I'm glad that it kind of ended after that because it was rare. I think we started to slip a little bit. I got fascinated and I did a lot of research for Bernie Madoff. But usually, yeah, we'd pull up Wikipedia and we'd have fun. We were sort of the antithesis of Dan Carlin. I mean, you went to Dan Carlin for accuracy and thoughtfulness, and you went to us for it was a hang with history. That's why History Hyenas was such an appropriate name because it was a little bit of history. Some episodes were more hyena, more wild, and a little history, and some were a little more dense, like the Battle of Crete, and less hyena. So you were always going to get both. You were either going to get a majority of one or the other.
Yeah, and Dan Carlin's the lion, I guess.
Yeah,
and you guys are predictably good.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts about? I mean, he's a storyteller too. He gets a lot of criticism from the historians, quote unquote. That's why he likes to knock. He keeps saying he's not a historian, but what are your thoughts about hardcore history with Dan Carlin? Like, was he an inspiration to the podcast you were doing, or like a counter, like almost like reverse psychology inspiration, where you wanted to do some kind of opposing type of podcast in history, or was history always just like a launching pad to just talk shit about human nature?
More the latter. I wasn't even aware of his podcast when we started.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and so it was just very organic. Again, like the chemistry, me and Chris became very good friends. We started the podcast. First, we did a web series called Bay Ridge Boys, which has its sort of little cult following. We did like 5 episodes and ended it. And then we did the podcast. And hyenas were my favorite animal. And I talk about them passionately. And I told Chris about them. And then he started appreciating them. And we both love history. I majored in history. It's one of the things I love. I go to museums all the time. I do history tours. So does he. And so it was just sort of a natural, let's do a history podcast. And it gave us something to talk about each episode to sort of hang our hats on and riff off of. So it had nothing to do with Dan's. What I think about Dan's, I think it's great. I think even if he's inaccurate in the opinions of the historical community, it starts conversations, which is good. It's like this thing where people go, oh, it's dangerous rhetoric. It's like, no, rhetoric only becomes dangerous when education fails. What's going on in America is education has failed. So if you call someone online dangerous, it's not him that's dangerous. It's the fucking stupid people that's dangerous. And it's the fault of this country. We didn't listen to Aristotle. The future of a civilization depends on public education. Yeah. And we failed. Education has failed. Kids are not interested in shit. And
So in some sense, those like Dan's podcast and podcast can be incredibly educational. He's the storytelling that pulls you in ultimately leads to you internalizing these stories and like remembering them and thinking through them and all those kinds of things that is much more powerful than any book on history that's accurate.
I think often it inspires you to go learn more. So it's like, I know we did that. I mean, people would go, hey, I went and learned about this, because they knew with us there was no pretense, which was great, that we had no standard. So it's like nobody came to us for historical accuracy. But I was kind of turned on by the fact that it inspired people to go learn about this stuff, or to at least know, like Battle of Crete, like you said, a very underappreciated battle. Even Winston Churchill said, from here on, we will no longer say that Greeks fight like heroes, but heroes fight like Greeks. I mean, it was a monumental battle, and not talked about enough. And our podcast would inspire people to go actually learn more, to go listen to Dan Carlin, or to go pick up a book, or to do research on their own. And so I think podcasts, Dan Carlin's obviously much more accurate than us, but it's good that people are going to podcasts like yours and to learn shit. Joe is really like the progenitor of that. I mean, having intellectuals on and getting the public interested with this new medium, in people who are intelligent. It's nice because, what the mainstream press pushes out is horseshit, gorgeous horseshit. It's got a beautiful veneer, but no substance. And so this is a nice pushback.
Yeah, the authenticity of Joe's show. I mean, I started listening from the very beginning, doing in grad school, I like a technical person, and he just pulled me in and made me curious to learn about all kinds of things and use my own critical reasoning skills on some of the bullshit guests he's had and some of the most inspiring guests he's had. So teach you to think.